Investigators are still trying to answer why a family reports their 7-year-old son missing.
There's nothing that child could have done in order for you to take away his life.
Friends, today I have two stories, all disturbing and insane. I start with a 16-year-old girl who was accused of taking the life of her 7-year-old nephew after he asked her to play video games. The teenager, who was an aspiring hip-hop artist going by the name of Spiffy Draco, or as I call her, Biffy Stupido, had been charged with first-degree murder and child abuse over the death of Jordan Vong. Jennie Brunsom appeared in court without any family members present. You see, Vong had been missing for 24 hours when police obtained a search warrant and discovered his body intentionally concealed inside a closet at his home. Regarding the incident, Jennie had been in her basement bedroom at the family's home when Jordan walked in and asked if she wanted to play video games. But she was upset about an argument she'd had with a girlfriend and told Jordan she didn't want to play. She told Jordan to go upstairs, but he lay down on her bed and refused to leave her room. The teen then pushed her nephew off the bed, causing him to hit his face on the floor. Jordan began to cry. She placed her hand over Jordan's mouth and plugged his nose as Jordan began to struggle for a few minutes. She then allegedly hid Jordan's body under her bed after he stopped moving. She later wrapped his body in a blanket and placed it in one of the two portable closets in her room. She didn't tell any of her family what she had done to Jordan because she was afraid, nor did she tell any of her family where she had hid Jordan. He was reported missing by his mother around 4:30 p.m. that day. The mother told police she had last seen her son playing on his tablet computer in the living room of their home. Authorities had hoped the young boy was merely hiding, but when he did not appear the next day, a search warrant was obtained. Then a detective discovered his body in the closet. A towel and comforter were wrapped around his head, and there was blood and biological matter around his nose. An unknown imprint was also discovered on his chest. A family member had since launched a GoFundMe campaign for the boy's burial. They said that Jordan was the sweetest and silliest little boy who had so much to offer. He dreamt of becoming a cowboy or a soldier when he grew up. He was filled with so much joy and brightened up any room with his contagious smile. It is with a heavy heart that we have to lay him to rest, but we thank everyone for all their support. Jennie herself pled guilty to second-degree murder and tampering with the body, both felonies, as part of a plea agreement. Every day is a reminder of what I did, she cried as she was talking to the court. There still has to be justice for Jordan. He was a child. I took an innocent life. I have to pay for my sins. You see, during the trial, Marty Bayer, the psychologist, told the court of Jennie's troubled youth and upbringing, based in part on multiple interviews with Jennie. Bayer told the court that Brunson had been sexually assaulted, including family members, while she was growing up. She was bullied in middle school for being Asian, poor, and skinny. She had a difficult and troubled relationship with her mother. Trauma in her life sent her into an emotional downward spiral. She became depressed. She acted out in anger and turned to alcohol and marijuana in her youth. She was kicked out of high school for marijuana possession. During the trial, there was also a behavioral health specialist, Jessica Way, who had worked with Jennie. She described her as someone who is absolutely positive, a hard worker, and a role model. Don't know about that one, love. Jessica said she's very invested in her treatment. In the trial, prosecutors asked the court to remember the victim, Jordan. The prosecutor said he was a joy to be around. He was a bright light, while he was showing a photo of Jordan on a screen. According to the prosecutors, Jennie was uncooperative and hateful toward police investigators when they were looking for Jordan, assuming he was a missing child. On Facebook, Jennie was consoled by friends and followers before the body was discovered, and she played the role of a grieving victim. Eventually, Jennie was sentenced to 7 years in a youth offender's office in 2018. Now, before I move on to the next story, I genuinely think when you're 16 years old, right, and your nephew comes to you or a child comes to you, wants to play video games, and you say no, and then for whatever reason you throttle that child, trauma definitely has a part to play because there's no causal link on the thinking behind it. It's not an excuse. There's plenty of people that have suffered trauma, even me. I don't go around killing people. Also, this idea that she's a youth offender, 16 years old, 7 years? I mean, I don't think it's a long enough time, but then what is? Maybe 15. Either way, this was a cold, classless killing. We now move on to the case of Jan Bronner. You see, on December 1997, Jan Michael Bronner married Barbara Croft, and in March 98, their daughter Paige was born. Jan and Barbara divorced in March 2001. She was awarded custody of Paige, and they lived with Barbara's parents, Carl and Jane Kraft, at their home in Tate County, Mississippi. Jan also lived with the Crofts off and on during his marriage to Barbara. Jan, in April 2001, was living with his girlfriend, June Filior, in an apartment in South Haven. According to Jan, they were having financial difficulties. And on top of that, he had also been told by Barbara that she did not want him around Paige. In the trial, he testified that pressure on him was building because nothing was going right. On a side note, this is what you call a pussy. Now, on April the 24th, 2001, Jan left his apartment in South Haven at 3 a.m. and headed toward the Crofts' house about an hour away. He testified that he thought he might be able to borrow money from Carl, although in a prior statement he said he had planned to rob Carl. While waiting on Croft's front steps from approximately 4 a.m. until 7 a.m., he took a 7mm Ruger rifle out of Carl's truck and emptied the bullets from it because he didn't want to get shot. A dog started barking and Bronner hid until Carl went back inside, then ran away, thinking Carl might be getting a gun. He then drove back to his apartment. Around noon the following day, April 25, 2001, Bronner again drove to the Crofts' house and knocked on the door, but no one was home. He then put on rubber gloves that he had purchased earlier that day, took the slats out of the back door, entered the house, and took a .22 rifle. He then went to Carl's workplace and asked him if it would be okay to go out to the house to wait for Barbara and Paige so that he could see his daughter, to which Carl agreed. Since Barbara and Paige did not return, Bronner decided to leave. And as he was doing so, Barbara, Paige, and Jane pulled into the drive. After a brief conversation with Jane and Barbara, Bronner became agitated. Just as he told Barbara that she was not going to take Paige away from him, he saw Jane walking toward the bedroom and shot her with the rifle. He said he then shot Barbara as she was coming toward him and went to where Jane had fallen and put her out of her misery. After this, he shot Barbara again and took Paige, who had witnessed the murders, to her bedroom and told her to watch TV. After Jan Bronner determined that Paige would be able to identify him, in his words, he was just bent on killing. So he went back into the bedroom and shot his daughter twice, killing her. He then waited in the house until Carl came home from work, and then when Carl walked through the door, he shot and killed him. Bronner stole approximately $300 from Carl's wallet, Jane's wedding ring, and food stamps out of Barbara's purse. He took Windex from the kitchen and attempted to wipe away any fingerprints he may have left. Bronner then returned to his apartment in South Haven, where he gave the stolen wedding ring to Filior and asked her to marry him, and told her he bought the ring at a pawn shop. Eventually, Bronner was suspected of the murders and detained by police. While he was being held at the Tate County Jail Department, Bronner testified on his own behalf at trial and gave essentially the same account of the events as described. During the trial, he did raise the insanity defense, although he testified that he knew at the time of the shootings that his actions were wrong. The trial judge found Bronner competent based on information furnished by the Mississippi State Hospital, which certified that he was competent to stand trial and mentally responsible for the acts at the time that were committed. Additionally, a court-appointed psychiatrist chosen by defense counsel reported that Jan was neither insane nor incompetent to stand trial. He was found guilty, and in 2012 he was executed by lethal injection. In the case of Jan, I'm a man at the best of times. The reason why he did this, he was just pissed off. That's it. You know how they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned? I don't know what the male equivalent is, but when you leave a man lonely and desperate, he's capable of the worst. But of course, that's no excuse. He was a bad husband. His wife or ex-wife did not want him anymore. He was so bad, she did not want him around her daughter, and he killed them for it. Why? Because he took it way too personally. Why me? What did I do? Look at me. I have no money, I have no jobs, I have no purpose. What he failed to realize is that the moment he married his wife, he signed an agreement he was going to care for her. The moment he had a daughter, he signed an agreement that he was responsible for her, but he ran from those responsibilities. I guess there is a saying, hell hath no fury like a degenerate pussy.